Michael Martinez had lived in Sunnyside Estates for over 5 years without incident. A friendly but private software developer who worked from home, he had finally saved enough to fulfill a small dream, installing a modest above-ground pool. The record-breaking heatwave had made his third-floor home office nearly unbearable, and the thought of cooling off between debugging sessions seemed like paradise. The day the installation crew arrived, several neighborhood children pressed their faces against his fence in fascination. Michael smiled and waved, promising the kids that once everything was safety certified, he'd host a proper pool party. Their excited cheers warmed his heart, until a shrill voice cut through their celebration. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" Patricia Wilkins appeared at his gate, designer sunglasses perched on her surgically enhanced nose, clipboard clutched in her manicured grip like a weapon. Michael had heard stories about HOA Karen since her controversial election to the board 3 months ago. Her campaign slogan, "Restoring Property Values Through Vigilance," had been a thinly veiled promise to crack down on what she called declining neighborhood standards. Coincidentally, her standards seemed to focus heavily on the homes of residents who weren't white. "Just installing a pool, Patricia," Michael replied pleasantly, extending his hand. "I'm Michael Martinez. I don't think we formally met." Patricia ignored his outstretched hand, instead making a show of photographing his yard with her phone. "We'll see about this," she muttered before marching away, already dialing someone on her phone. That evening, a friendly text arrived from Elena Gonzalez, the only board member who had opposed Patricia's election. "Heads up, Michael. Hurricane Patricia is on the warpath about your pool. She's calling an emergency board meeting. Better check your paperwork." Michael smiled as he reviewed his meticulously organized files. He'd done his homework multiple times before spending a penny on this project. Patricia had no idea who she was messing with. The pounding on Michael's front door at 7:15 a.m. nearly caused him to spill his coffee. Through the peephole, he saw Patricia flanked by 2 uncomfortable-looking police officers. "Really?" he muttered, opening the door with a calm he didn't feel. "Mr. Martinez." Patricia's voice carried artificially loud, clearly performing for the neighbors peering from their windows. "These officers are here about your unauthorized structure and the disturbance you're causing." Officer Rodriguez glanced at her partner before addressing Michael. "Sir, we received a complaint about an unpermitted pool that might pose a safety risk." Michael invited them in, offering coffee which the officers gratefully accepted. He spread his documentation across the kitchen counter, HOA bylaws with the relevant sections highlighted, city permits, safety certifications, and professional installation receipts. "As you can see," he explained, "pools under 20 feet don't require board approval, just standard safety measures, which I've exceeded." Officer Rodriguez nodded, visibly relieved. "Everything looks in order, sir." Patricia's face contorted in disbelief. "You can't possibly be leaving. He's violating community standards." "Ma'am," the second officer interjected, "there's no violation here. And I should mention that filing false reports is itself a violation." After they left, Michael's phone buzzed with texts from neighbors who had witnessed the confrontation. Among them was a message from Mrs. Abernathy, the 78-year-old widow across the street. "What a wonderful show this morning, Michael. I haven't been this entertained since my Harold was alive." Patricia's face turned the most interesting shade of purple. "By the way, do you teach swimming? I never learned." 3 days later, Michael returned from grocery shopping to find an official-looking notice taped to his door. The HOA was fining him $200 daily for his non-compliant recreational water feature until removal. The letterhead looked legitimate, but the signature was just Patricia's. No other board members had signed. That same afternoon, a water conservation inspector arrived, claiming someone had reported Michael for excessive water usage, a serious offense during the region's drought. The inspector looked confused after checking the pool's modest size and efficient filtration system. "This actually uses less water than a typical lawn of the same square footage," the inspector noted. "Whoever reported this wasted my time." Michael's phone pinged with a notification from his security system. The camera had captured a stranger peering through his windows. The HOA war had just gotten serious. The quarterly HOA meeting was standing room only. Patricia had advertised a special presentation on community standards enforcement, and rumors had spread that she planned to make an example of Michael. Patricia strutted to the podium, connecting her laptop to the projector with a triumphant smile. "I've documented multiple violations at 347 Sunnyside Lane," she announced, including evidence of an illegal business operation. The screen filled with photos of Michael's home office, clearly taken through his windows. Next came images of various people entering his home at different times. "Mr. Martinez claims to be a software developer, but clearly he's running some kind of unauthorized operation," Patricia declared, different individuals coming and going at all hours. "Those are my physical therapy patients," called out a voice from the back. Dr. Sarah Kim stood up. "Michael generously offers his pool for rehabilitation sessions for my patients with mobility issues, free of charge. I have signed medical waivers and documentation for every person in those photos." Murmurs spread through the room as Dr. Kim made her way to the front. "Mr. Martinez approached me after learning about our clinic's need for hydrotherapy options. His pool meets all medical safety standards, and he's never asked for compensation." Patricia's face reddened. "That's still a business operation." "No, it's not," interjected Elena, now standing. "Non-commercial community service is explicitly permitted under Bylaw 17.3, which encourages neighborly acts of charity and community support." Michael finally rose. "While we're discussing rule violations," he said quietly, projecting his own screen, "I'd like to address some actual concerns." The room fell silent as Michael methodically presented evidence of Patricia's selective enforcement, financial discrepancies, and, most damning, her illegal rental operation. He included testimony from her tenants, tax records showing unreported income, and city ordinances clearly prohibiting her basement conversion. Furthermore, Michael concluded, "I filed a formal complaint with the City Housing Authority and the State Attorney General's office regarding discriminatory housing practices, supported by the pattern of enforcement documented here." The silence was broken by Mrs. Abernathy. "I move to remove Patricia Wilkins from the board, effective immediately." The vote wasn't even close. 3 weeks later, Michael hosted the neighborhood's biggest pool party in years. Children splashed happily while adults chatted around tables laden with potluck dishes. Mrs. Abernathy proudly demonstrated her new swimming skills, taught by Michael during their twice-weekly lessons. From his deck, Michael had a perfect view of Patricia's house, where city inspectors swarmed like ants, and a large notice of violation was posted prominently on her door. A moving truck arrived the following week. The new HOA president, Elena, established a community oversight committee to ensure fair and transparent enforcement of rules. And Michael's pool became a neighborhood gathering spot, hosting everything from children's swimming lessons to the rehabilitation sessions for Dr. Kim's patients. The following summer, Michael added a small water slide. The HOA approved it unanimously. The next day, a child protection services worker knocked on Michael's door, investigating reports of unsupervised children in a dangerous aquatic environment. The caseworker quickly determined the report was unfounded. Michael didn't even have children. That evening, Michael attended the emergency HOA meeting Patricia had called. The community clubhouse was unexpectedly packed. Word had spread about Patricia's crusade. Item 1. Unauthorized pool installation at 347 Sunnyside Lane. Patricia announced, projecting photos of Michael's yard on the wall. "As you can see." "Point of order," Elena interrupted. "Before we proceed, I move that we review the actual HOA bylaws regarding pools." What followed was a meticulous reading of the regulations, with Michael's installation meeting every requirement. Several neighbors spoke up about Patricia's pattern of selective enforcement. "I've had a pool for 7 years," said George Washington, a retired black teacher. "Funny how mine suddenly needs inspection too." The meeting ended with the board voting 4-1 against any action regarding Michael's pool. Patricia, the lone dissenter. As people filed out, Michael overheard conversations about other cases of Patricia's targeted harassment. Later that night, Michael's doorbell camera, caught Patricia prowling around his property with a measuring tape and camera. The footage ended with her tripping over a garden hose and falling face first into a rose bush. "Michael, do you have a minute?" Elena caught up with him in the neighborhood coffee shop the following Saturday. Her expression was serious as she slid into the booth across from him. "Patricia's gone too far," she whispered, sliding a folder toward him. "The board's divided. Some are afraid of her, some agree with her methods. But this isn't about your pool anymore." The folder contained printouts of emails showing Patricia had been systematically targeting homeowners of color with violation notices, while ignoring identical issues at other homes. More disturbing were financial records showing discrepancies in HOA funds, coinciding with Patricia's tenure as treasurer. "There's more," Elena continued. "She's running an illegal airbim operation out of her basement. No permits, no taxes reported, explicitly against both city regulations and our HOA rules." As they talked, Patricia herself walked into the cafe. Spotting them, she marched over. "Having a little meeting about me," she hissed. "Elena, associating with troublemakers could jeopardize your position." "Actually," Michael replied calmly, "we were discussing the upcoming community pool party I'm hosting. You're welcome to attend, Patricia." Her eyes narrowed. "This isn't over, Martinez. I protect property values in this neighborhood from people who don't respect the rules." After she left, Elena looked troubled. "Be careful, Michael. She's convinced half the board you're running some kind of illegal operation from your home. She's hired a private investigator to watch your house."